Evening, everybody. Thank you for joining in and being part of this evening. I, Rahul Soni, welcome you to this exciting webinar on the power of generative AI. We are living in a time where generative AI is not just transforming industries, it's reshaping the nature of work itself. About what we will be talking about in this webinar, what exactly is generative AI, how is it being used in real world scenarios, how is it changing the job market from traditional tech roles to entirely new ones like prompt engineering, AI operations, and human AI collaborations roles. What skills are in demand? How can you start your learning journey even if you are from a non-technical background? So today we are diving into this fascinating universe of Gen AI. TCSIN, in collaboration with top IITs, have launched 5 hands-on career-ready programs as well. So we will give you the glimpse of the same as well. So just to name, AI in FinTech offered by IIT Guwahati, VLSI Chip Design offered by IIT Hyderabad, AI specialization program on data science, computer science, and NLP by IIT ISM Dhanbad, AI for real-world applications program by IIT Kharagpur, and of course, cloud computing program offered by IIT Bhubaneswar. I will give you more details about these courses in this session itself. But before that, I am thrilled to have with us esteemed speaker who have seen the industry evolve and understand what skills truly matter. I am talking about Shruti Kunde, who is a senior research scientist at TCS Research Mumbai, specializing in high performance computing of MLDL frameworks, software architectures, and distributed systems. Her current research focuses on enhancing the performance of large language models, which are integral to GenAI-based pipelines. She has several publications in peer-reviewed international conferences and holds multiple granted patents in her field. She is a recipient of the Google India Women in Engineering Award and the Patent Champion Award at TCS Research. She earned her PhD in computer science and engineering from IIT Bombay. So let's welcome our esteemed speaker today. Welcome, Shruti.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. Yeah.
So let's start the session. Should we have, as we have seen that we have varied audience with us today. All of them are looking for more information on these trending technologies with a prime motive to see how they can build a career in these. So I would like to ask you, can students from both IT and non-IT education backgrounds find a fit in the AI space? Could you please throw some light on which roles are suitable for these backgrounds?
Yeah, so why not is my answer, because see, nowadays education has become very pervasive. Everybody has access to all the courses, so there is nothing stopping you if you are willing to learn. So if you're from an IT background, then it means that your formal coursework will actually be defined by, whatever is covered as a part of IT or covered as a part of computer science. But that doesn't mean that, you cannot go to any of these online courses which are being shared and do courses, fundamental courses in computer science like data structures, algorithms, and then do some more advanced courses, learn Python, learn things like the generative AI and so on. So nowadays, I would say your degree should not limit you. In fact, your degree is a stepping stone and you can augment it with all that is available for you today. So as shown on this slide here, if you think about these professions in different fields like fintech, which is finance and technology coming together, or advanced AI, generative AI engineering, or a hardware domain like VLSI chip design. So if you look at it, there are like different opportunities, from being an ML engineer to being a data analyst, risk analytics, product analytics, or designing something on a VLSI chip physically, or doing the layout, verification, testing. Now you may think that these are very hardcore professions, and until and unless I get into a degree in this field, I will not be able to work here. I think that notion no longer exists. Gone are the days, when we had these traditional degrees which bound us to work in only particular domains. No longer is the case. So if you want to work in AI, Gen AI, it is always good to have a mathematical base. It is good to understand some amount of probability, some amount of optimization, statistics, and so on. But in addition to that, you need to upskill yourself. You need to understand things like what are the different packages offered by Python today, what is TensorFlow. Then there is a Hugging Face website which is going to allow you to access these big transformer models. anybody can download and anybody can start using them. Similarly, if you want to do applied AI, then you have to become very smart at managing data. So data scientist is one role which is generic, and it has a lot of applicability across multiple domains. So for this, you have to have a good understanding of different models, whether they are machine learning models, deep learning models, how to deal with data, how to conduct, how to, when you get some data, how do you clean that data, how do you get the data in a format such that it can be given as input to a model so that you can get the desired output. So for this, fintech is one of the domains, but as a data scientist, you are somebody who is opening up avenues across all domains today. Every domain is going to require a data scientist, primarily because every domain is dealing with voluminous data which is being generated on a day-to-day basis. So organizations don't know how to deal with this data. And if you build that skill set of how to do feature understanding, getting a good knowledge of the models and so on, then how to train these models, how to get the desired output, these are skill sets which will help you not only in finance, but any domain that you can think of. For those who are more from an electronics, from more of a hardware background, I mean, there is a whole lot of hardware which is coming out, new hardware coming out today. Reason being, the world has come up with these big generative AI models. The problem is that we do not have the required infrastructure to host these models and to help them to work efficiently, to give us output in a timely manner, to ensure that we get the correct output. So for these, companies like Nvidia are coming up with newer and newer chipsets, newer hardware, and which is why having all these, having a background in VLSI chip design, having a background in some of these higher level languages like Verilog, VHDL, and so on, in addition to Python and other shell scripting languages, is something which has an entire job space worked out. So don't limit yourself to your degree, would be my only takeaway thought here. You are, even if it is not a part of your curriculum, nobody is stopping you from going out and doing these courses, and TCS Ion itself is offering you so many more of these, which Rahul will talk in detail about, so that you can augment your skill set and make yourself more future ready for the job market.
Right, Shruti. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's an important comment. That degree should not limit you. So we have 5 courses as well, which I will talk about later. And where there is a will, there is a way. We should have zeal to learn. See some of the points in the chat box as well. Somebody is saying they are from finance background. Somebody is saying they are from AI background directly, and they want to upskill themselves. So it's an important session for you. Please stay with us. We will continue with that. So I have the next question, Shruti, for you. Can you please simplify generative AI for us, how it really works, how it connects to AI ML, and why it matters for students and the industry today?
Yeah, sure, Rahul. So maybe I'll share my screen so that I can show my PPT, and then I can talk a little bit about what exactly is generative AI, how is it different from what we have been seeing till date, and why it is so important for us to be well versed in the art of understanding and using Gen AI. So
Sure.
what is AI, what is ML, and what is DL? So AI is artificial intelligence, ML machine learning, DL is deep learning. Now, we often tend to use these terminologies interchangeably. We say AI ML or we say ML DL. What exactly are we referring to here? So artificial intelligence, if you see, by default, any human being will be having basic intelligence. So whenever this intelligence, which a human has, is transferred to a machine, then we call that intelligence as artificial intelligence. But remember, at the beginning, at the core, it is the human who has the intelligence. When we transfer it to a machine is what we call as intelligence, which is why any method which mimics human behavior, so eventually what will the machine do? It will do exactly what it has been taught to do. So any method which mimics human behavior is called artificial intelligence. Now, traditionally, if we think of it, we have followed this explicit programming kind of a setup. In any explicit programming, what do we mean? You have got these very specific conditional loops. Like, for example, you can give cases where you will say, if something happens, then do this. If it happens, then do that. Similarly, you have while loops for continuity. You can put something in the loop and it will go on and on till you give it a stopping condition. Similarly, you have for loops. Now, think about, a car which is being driven. When a car is being driven, there will be so many scenarios. Suppose I just a statement saying if the signal is red, then the car should stop. If it is yellow, it should slow down, and if it is green, then in that case it should continue. So then it should go. But what about situations when there are potholes which come in between? Am I putting the case there that if there are potholes, what am I supposed to do? Suppose there is a human being who comes in between suddenly, even though the signal suddenly comes in. Or what happens if a dog is crossing the road? If a dog is crossing the road, I mean, suddenly you have to apply the brakes. So the issue is that we cannot condition or we cannot program the machine to understand each and every scenario. And this is where explicit programming started becoming more and more taxing. Now, this is where, machine learning came into the picture. So as you can see here, AI is what we see as the big bubble, and machine learning is essentially a subset of AI. Now, in this case, what is the difference? In machine learning, it is not explicit program. So you don't have to come up with all these rules, because as systems become more and more complex, it becomes impossible to come up with all the possible rules to handle that system that is working in its entirety. So instead of us defining the rules, what happens is that the machine itself will learn the rules. So the machine itself learns the rule, and which is why there are two types of machine learning examples here. One is classification and one is regression. So classification means any object or an entity is put into a particular class. So for example, if I give it all the features of a cat and I tell that, in the output, this is a cat, and there are different types of cats, right? So I will put in multiple features. I will identify what are the features of all cats. Similarly, I will identify the features of all dogs, and then I will say, okay, if these are met, then it's a dog. Using all this data, you will train your model. And once you train your model and then you ask it a query, after you ask it a query, then what happens? It will automatically tell you whether, the query which you have asked is the images of a cat or of a dog. The machine learning model will be able to tell you. Similarly, there is another case called as regression. So for example, your classic example of regression is about a house. So imagine that you're looking to purchase a home. You will look at different parameters, right? What is the location? What is the bedroom? What are the number of bedrooms? What is the area of the home? All these will actually determine the price of the house. So regression is actually pointing you out to some values, okay, which will give you an indication of what will be the price of the house in this case. Now with machine learning, this is how we worked. That is, we made sure that we defined all the features. We trained a model with all the available data. And the more the data, the better the quality of the data that we trained on, the better was the model output. So, and then we got an output of whether it could classify something or whether it could give you a proper price of whatever you're looking for in a regression model. So this is where machine learning came in. So what was the limitation? Now, feature engineering is also not a simple task. What when there are, hundreds of features? As a human being, can you come up with all those features? And here we are talking about text. We are talking about different features of a cat, the color of the fur, the color of the fur, the color of the eyes, whether it is like what kind of a breed it is, and so on and so forth. So now these were simple. What if you have got hundreds of features you want to train on? What if you have got images on which you want to train on? So this is why the concept of deep learning came about, because it was inspired by the human brain. So think of it this way. You have to feed everything to a machine learning model in terms of features. But if there is a human child, and to a human child, if you point out a cat, or if you point out another cat and yet another cat, now if the human child sees an nth cat on the road, it may not have exactly the features of the cat which you have shown. So it may be a different colored cat, it may have a different size, but the human brain is able to understand with very few examples. It is able to understand that, okay, this is a cat which you are showing me. Now, deep learning tried to get closer to the human brain. Human brain has got billions of neurons. So why not have a model also which has got billions of neurons? So artificial neural networks were created based on neural architectures. So deep neural networks, when we say deep, what does the word deep mean? Deep is defined by the number of layers that an artificial neural network has. So the more the layers, the deeper the neural network is what we say. In deep learning, the features are extracted. You just give your input. The features are extracted by the different layers of the network. Then your model trains on these features and it gives you an output. So have you seen your job has become even easier? You started with explicit programming when you were driving the car and you explicitly program every condition that happened on the road. Then you realized that was not possible. So you came up with machine learning models. In machine learning models, you gave it a set of rules, you gave it a lot of good quality data, and you trained that model and you realized that it will be doing a good job. Then you reached deep learning models where now you don't even have features. So your model is becoming bigger and bigger. It is able to extract all this information from a given input. It is able to train on its own with that given information, and it is able to do the task that you want it to do. So simple example here of a self-driving car. So humans will learn the actions like accelerate and steer. Do we actually calculate the value when we are doing this? No, we are not really doing this, right? We have these estimates in our brain. We have this whole neural network in our brain, which is telling us that if there is a car in the front which is slowing down on the highway, I better press the brakes right now so that I stop in time. So, but machines need values, right? Machines need values. So what do we do in such a scenario? How do you record these values? Maybe you have a camera, okay, which is put on top of the car, and then it is monitoring everything, okay? It is monitoring how the car is maneuvering on a busy road, what the car does, when a pedestrian comes in front, what the car does when it sees a signal, what the car does when it's on a highway, when it is at a toll booth, and so on and so forth. Now, these images are fed into a model. You don't have to come up with the features. You don't have to tell, okay, look for this, look for that. You're just capturing information and you're giving it to your deep learning model. And this model will be able to predict the exact values for your three variables: brake, accelerate, and steer. That is the power of deep learning. Essentially, it is able to perform exactly the task that you are asking it to perform, and at the same time, without you having to provide it with all the features which are engineered. In a sense, you get a lot of data without doing any engineering on your own, and yet the model will do exactly what you want it to do if you specify the task. So, in a nutshell, AI imitates human behavior. Are you clear about this? Machine learning is a subset of AI, does not use explicit programming, but requires features to be given by humans. Deep learning is another subset of machine learning which does not require feature definition and yet is very, very powerful. So I hope after today, if anybody is talking about AI, ML, DL, you should be very clear in your mind what you mean by AI, what is ML, and what is DL. So these are the basics of the definitions that we want to keep with us going ahead, because we are now living in the world of generative AI. Now you know what is AI, what is generative AI. So let us look at a little bit of evolution here so that you get a good idea of where we stand. This is a machine learning model. It's tiny. It's like a baby. It is small. It's not too powerful. You have to give it a lot of features. you have feature engineering, and then it will do the task. Then came these deep learning models, able to look at your images, do not require to do feature engineering and so on. So becoming more powerful, becoming bigger also in size. Then these are also deep learning models, but we call them the era of CNNs, convolution neural networks, recurrent neural networks, which started having some amount of memory. They were able to retain some amount of information that you gave them, and then they were able to make predictions which helped. The convolution neural networks were very powerful and were used for images, especially for a lot of image data. So very powerful deep learning models. And finally, as of today, we are in the age of transformers. Very big models, billions of parameters requiring hundreds of GBs of memory. And this is what we call as, popularly known as large language models today. And they are largely used for what we call as generative AI. That is, you are generating something, remember, in using AI. For that, the model which is powering all this in the background is called a transformer. So if we look at large language models a little more deeply here, what is a large language model? So assume that, a model which is pre-trained on some information, like you have ChatGPT as a classic example today. You ask ChatGPT for any information and it is able to give you that answer, right? So why is it able to do that? What have you done for it to give it an answer? Nothing. This model is pre-trained. When we say it is pre-trained, it means that there is a lot of data provided to this model from multiple domains. And this is a huge model, billions of parameters. Okay. So it is able to take in all that data. And when you ask it a question, it is able to generate output for you. It is able to generate responses for you based on whatever question you have asked for it. Now, there are many models which are also fine-tuned. What do we mean by fine-tuning? Okay, think of your bachelor's degree. As a part of your bachelor's degree, there are many things that you learn, right? There are many things that you learn. You will be doing some course maybe in physics. You will be doing a course in statistics. You will have some courses which are in algebra. And then, slowly as you move towards your final year, you will start having more and more specific courses where if you are graduating with computer science, you will have more courses in computer science. If you're graduating with electronics, you will have more electronics oriented courses. Now, let us say that here, as with a bachelor's degree, you are a typical pre-trained model. Now, think of it this way. When you try to do a master's degree, what happens? At that time, you are specializing. You decide that your specialization is computer science. So now you are being fine-tuned here. You're being fine-tuned into becoming a computer science graduate. For your master's program, you will probably not have to take courses in physics or courses in chemistry if you are graduating in computer science. So now you become a fine-tuned model. You go in for a PhD, you are like even more fine-tuned because you get into the very specifics of some detailed problem. So think of ChatGPT as a pre-trained model. It is a generic model. Nowadays, we have so many models which have come up for the finance domain. So these models are fine-tuned. Sorry. And why is fine-tuning such a big thing? Because these models are so huge that if you try to train the entire model, it can take you months and years, which was not the case with machine learning and with deep learning models. So remember, machine learning model, you had to perform one task, like you just wanted to classify a cat or a dog. In deep learning, you are giving it some images, you're giving it lots of data, but it is performing one task at the end. It's giving you some values at output. It's performing one task. Generative AI is not that. It's generative. You are asking a question. It is generating the next token, which forms your answer. It is generating a token internally, which is now getting translated into natural language so that you as a person can understand what is happening. So look at this here. This is an example of a dog. A normal dog can do things like sit, come, down, stay. You can give it some instructions. What if you want to train a service dog? Okay. What if you want to train a police dog? or if you want to train a guide dog. So this is a classic example of what is fine tuning. So this could be your base case who is pre-trained, but if you want a police dog, then it is specifically supposed to be to sniff out banned substances. It is specifically supposed to sniff out clues in a scene of crime. So you are fine tuning that dog for a specific purpose. So large language models are trained to solve common language problems. So these are some of the problems. Text classification they can do. Question answers, all of us know, right? GPT does it. Document generation, text generation. Basically, generation is the key word here. So the models are then tailored to solve specific problems in different fields like retail, finance, entertainment. So you give it data from a particular field, then that model becomes smarter in that field. So you have fine-tuned your large language model. So what is generative AI? Now, with all this talk that we have had, what do you think is generative? Very simple definitions here, which you should take back with you today. When new content is generated by artificial intelligence, it is called generative AI. What is this new content? Maybe you're generating texts, maybe you're generating images, videos, music, anything. All this is generative AI. It is new content being generated. Remember the previous models which were there like ML and DL. You're training them on data and they are actually working on that specific data to give you an answer to a question which you have posed. But they will only give you that specific answer. They'll classify whether it's a cat or a dog. If you ask me, if you ask that, okay, which species of flower this is, it will not be able to classify. Why? Because your model is not trained on that. It is trained for a specific answer. You have to give it lots of data and it is trained for a specific answer. So examples of generative AI, some of these models, I mean, there are many more actually. These are like just 2-3 examples. Please visit huggingface.com. This is a whole repository of open source models available to you. Anybody can download them. Anybody can start playing around with them. How do you interact with generative AI? You describe in a chat dialog box what you want AI to create. So I want to bake a cake. So this is my question. Please give me a recipe for this. This is called as a prompt. I'm prompting generative AI. I'm prodding generative AI. Please do this for me. And that is what generative AI will do for me. So what does it do? It summarizes complex information. It will generate diverse ideas. I'm telling that, okay, I want to plan a party. Can you give me some ideas on how to plan a party? Then it can write short stories for you. It can create paintings. Everybody must be aware of these Ghibli style images, which were arranged between. It can generate code for you. So essentially, it can also do your job for you. So that is what generative AI is, the keyword generative. Now, we also need to be aware of the dark side. So before we get into details, AI can be misused in what we know as deepfakes. Okay, it can generate images and videos that look real but are not actually real, and so they are misleading. It can generate texts which are difficult to recognize as machine made. So more often than not, AI is being used for a lot of cheating, for completing homework assignments, for writing and submitting things which are supposed to be human generated. And it's becoming very difficult to figure out, when the text is machine made. AI can also provide answers which sound correct but are actually incorrect. So remember this, you cannot trust AI 100%. Even if it's giving you some output, you need to verify that output, which is why there is still a human in the loop. This concept of hallucinating, where AI is generating answers which sound correct are not actually correct, can be very and can lead to a lot of chaos, which is why even today the human in the loop is extremely important. So AI has this GIGO effect. Now, GIGO is a term which was there years ago when computers came into the market. There was a time when everything was done on pen and paper, and then one fine day, the computers came in. So what does GIGO mean? It means that the quality of what is created, that is the output, depends on the quality of data used, or rather the quality of the prompts that is input. So you give a very good prompt, you describe exactly what you want your machine, your generative model to do, and it will give you a perfect output. Many times you will say that, oh, this generative AI model doesn't know what it's saying. First, before you say that, try to think of whether you have given a good prompt. In this way, you will be able to avoid the GIGO effect. What does it mean? Garbage in, garbage out. So if you are going to give garbage in, you can assume that generative AI is going to come up with a lot of garbage. So hence, the skill of prompt engineering is something which becomes very, very important today. At this point, I'll take a short break. I'll hand this over back to Rahul. He wants to talk a little bit about the courses, so I think which are very, very helpful to you. So then we can continue this session. So over to you, Rahul.
Yeah, thanks, Shruti, for the impressive and colorful presentation, what I've seen till now. And I feel generative AI is a digital artist with endless brushes and colors capable of producing unique creations every time. I think after seeing your presentation, I think like that. And hope audience is also listening to you carefully and efficiently, as I can see questions from them. So I hope they are listening quite seriously. Thank you, Shruti, for that. So let's begin with the course details. Our expert speaker has already given us the clear understanding of why these technologies matter, how fast the job market is growing, and what kind of roles and skills are in demand. But now comes the big question that from where do you begin? We understand that starting something new can feel overwhelming, but the good news is you don't have to figure it out alone. To help you build the right skills in the right way, TCS IN has partnered with some of the India's topmost institutes to bring you 5 powerful, practical, and industry-focused program. So let's begin with the first course, AI in FinTech Certificate Program by IIT Guwahati. So you can see the PPT and the slides as well on the screens. It's a 3-month certificate course by IIT Guwahati, 36 plus hours of overall world-class experiential learning. Eligibility criteria: students pursuing engineering, MBA, BCom, MCom, BSc, MSc. I think most of you were asking about the eligibility as well in the chat box that I am from. I have done BCom or MBA in finance, or I am doing BA. So is it relevant to me? Yes, this course is relevant to you, those who are in finance background. So the potential career, as you can see on the slide: ML, Gen AI engineer, FinTech, data analyst, FinTech, risk analytics specialist, FinTech product analyst, blockchain engineer, cryptocurrency, and DeFi specialist. And the average salary, that's the most important thing. It ranges from 7 to 20 lakhs. So links has already been posted in the chat box for all the 5 courses. We will put the links in the chat box, and you can see the QR code as well here. From here itself, you can scan the QR code on your mobile phones and register for this program. And please note, it's a launch offer of rupees 11,499. So hurry up and start registering for the course. Let's move to a second. Okay, IIT ISM Dhanbad, Artificial Intelligence and Emerging Technologies. So it's also a 3-month certification program in AI and emerging technologies. Key highlights, as you can see on the screen: 65 hours of overall experiential learnings. We will be giving you add-on courses as well, prep courses on Python, statistics essentials, and AI ML fundamentals. No doubt, industry speakers will be there to guide you. They will be taking the sessions from IIT Dhanbad. The cost is just 9999. Can we go to next one? Okay. As I mentioned, a link has already been posted in chat box. You can directly click on the link and register for the course. And you can check all the details on the website as well, microsite as well. All these things has been given there. So it's easy for you to access and register for the course. Okay. Now, IIT Bhubaneswar certificate program on cloud systems and infrastructure management. We will give you hands-on expertise as well in GCP, Azure, AWS, GPT-4, and the cost is 11,499. The cohort will begin from 10th of August. So you need to hurry up for this course. And as I mentioned, the cost is 11,499, and the certificate of excellence for toppers of the batch will be given as well for IIT Bhubaneswar. And I have a surprise for you for this course, basically for IIT Bhubaneswar. So till 15th of August, we are giving 10% discount, as you can see on the screen as well. Can we go to next? Yes. QR code already mentioned, it's given here. So the first cohort commencement date is 8th of November. You can see all the details on the microsite. If you have any problem, you can write to us. Email ID has been mentioned, info.tcsinhub@tcs.com. Okay. Once again, this offer is till 15th August, our Independence Day. So please make the most of it and register for the course. Okay, let's move to IIT KGP. AI for IICPS certificate program, hands-on approach to AI for real-world applications. As I mentioned earlier as well, in all programs, we are giving hands-on expertise. The cost is 7,499. The cost is 7,499. And the top 10% to be awarded at IIT Kharagpur campus. Please note that. The potential job roles will be like machine learning engineer, deep learning engineer, ML architect, AI engineer, a GPT-3 developer, data science engineer. So those who are asking that they want to shift in data science field and they are just doing their graduation. So this course is for you. Okay. And let's move to the last course, which we have in collaboration with IIT Hyderabad. It's a 2-month certificate program. The name is VLSI Chip Design. The potential career paths are VLSI design engineer, physical design engineer, analog design engineer, layout engineer, verification engineer, and test engineer. I can recall from the poll that I have seen that 10 or 15% people had opted for the VLSI. So that this course is for you actually. And the salary will range from 7 to 20 lakhs. Yeah. Can we have the next slide? Okay. So as I mentioned, for all the courses, expert faculty will be there as we have collaborated with topmost IITs. For VLSI also, it's a launch offer, 14,160. And first week boot camp will be available on additional cost of 9,440. Again, I would like to hand it over to our speaker to continue with the class.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul. We talked about garbage in and garbage out, right? So let me continue from there. So we said that if you write a good prompt, if you give it good input, good data, you can expect that the generative AI model which is there is going to give you the output that you desire. So what is this prompt engineering? It is nothing but a process of carefully crafting the instructions or questions which you give to AI to get the best possible response. It's like knowing the right way to ask a question so that you get the most useful answer. So if you ask a generic question, you're going to get a generic answer. You ask a more specific question, you get a more specific answer. So AI is also in many senses like a human being, right? If we understand the question well, then we are able to give a good and a relevant answer. If we don't understand the question well, then maybe we will not be able to give the expected answer. So any prompt which is there, right? Any prompt which you write has got all these different aspects, which we don't really think about, but they are very interesting to know. So first thing is the task. You have context, exemplar, persona, format, and tone. And the sequence which is there, it goes from very important to even optional. But whenever a generative AI in the background is trying to understand your prompt, it's actually going to try and, make sure that it has figured out everything that is there here. So let's see what exactly they mean with an example. So suppose here is a prompt. Write a short story about a brave cat who saves its owner from a fire. So this is a prompt which is asking you to write a short story. So what is the task? The task is to write a short story. Okay. So this is your task from the prompt. This is what your generative AI model has understood. What is the context of this story? The context is about the cat who saves its own owner from the fire. So if I'm asking you to write a story, it's not just any random story. I've given you a context. The machine has understood the context. What is the exemplar? Now, in this story, there is a protagonist. Who is the protagonist? It's the cat. What is the conflict here? The conflict is a fire. How do you resolve this conflict? By saving the owner. Now, this is what your model is going to take away from this simple English language sentence that you have given it. Persona. Every story will have personas. In this case, it's your protagonist. The persona can be the cat. What is the format? The format is, it's not an essay. It's not it's not a short note. It's a short story. So that is the format. And the tone. Now, what kind of tone does this encompass? It's a heroic tone. It's an adventurous tone. It's talking about a brave cat. It's talking about a fire. It's talking about the bravery of the cat in actually going in and saving the owner from his fire. So can you see behind this simple prompt which you have given, it is able to write an entire short story about a brave cat who saves its owner from a fire, because in the background, this is what your model is understanding. And this is way above what any machine learning model or a deep learning model have understood till date. So that is the beauty of generative AI. It is able to generate a story for you just based on a short prompt that you have provided it. Okay, so let us look at some examples of prompt engineering now. Okay, so I gave a simple prompt, plan an Indian dinner for guests. So as you can see, my prompt is rather generic. I'm not telling GPT anything. I'm just saying I want an Indian dinner. So one context which I've given is Indian. So automatically GPT is telling me you serve rice, dal and naan. Fair enough. It's given me a complete answer for the kind of question that I have asked it. Now, let me be a little more specific. Plan a traditional Indian dinner menu for guests. Now, I'm saying it should be traditional. It should include starters, main course, and dessert. Now I'm being more specific with my prompt. It has been refined. So what does GPT say? It says that, for starters, you can have samosas. For main course, it is getting a little more elaborate, not just rice and dal and naan. Here you can see it's talking about butter chicken, basmati rice and naan. And then I also want dessert, so it has suggested gulab jamun. So can you see the difference between the two prompts? That is, I'm being specific and see how generative AI is responding to me. Now let's go even deeper. You plan a traditional Indian dinner menu with regional diversity. I'm talking about regional diversity here, including a starter, main course, side dishes, and dessert. So as you can see, it has come up with multiple dishes, but one thing that is a big takeaway here is that it has brought in regional diversity. It's talking about something from North India, something from South India, something Punjabi. It has also brought in side dishes which were not there otherwise. And then it has also come up with some dessert. So this is the beauty of prompt engineering, where, it's actually an art to be able to write a good prompt so that you can make Gen AI work for you to the best of its ability. So somebody would say, Gen AI just told me rice, dal, and naan. But go back and ask, how good was your prompt? How well did you prompt Gen AI? So this is the beauty of the Gen AI prompt. Now let's go to a little more, relevant and a more useful example. So your task is to generate Python code to do the following. Create synthetic data for a sentiment analysis application. Process the data using data frames and generate interesting tabular reports and graphs. So can you see here, this is rather generic, but still it's able to do, whatever I wanted to do. And so I would have actually used a live example, but then I've just taken a screenshot here and I'm showing you the outputs that have been generated. So if you can see, it has nicely, I've taken a snapshot of this piece here. I want to do sentiment analysis. So it is doing it for some number of samples for certain users. And there are 3 choices. I love this product. This is the worst thing I have ever bought. It's okay. Not great, but not terrible either. So they are positive, neutral, and negative. It is able to write. So this entire code has been generated by Gen AI. Okay, your task is to generate this Python code. Once you generate it, it has created some synthetic data. Okay, this is an example of synthetic data creation. It has taken 1000 samples, and for each of these samples, it has randomized it. Okay, and it has assigned either a positive sentiment, a negative sentiment, or a neutral sentiment. After this, it has processed this data. I have asked it to process using data frames. So it's going to use data frames and do that. And I hope whoever is familiar with Python understands data frames is essentially a data structure which helps you to store data in different formats so that it is useful to you for doing any kind of processing on that data. So then you process this data and you generate interesting tabular reports and graphs. So I just stopped at this level. It has given me some output which I desired, but look at the power of GenAI. If I want to go into details, I can actually specify what graphs I want. I can actually specify the metrics which I want to measure. I can specify the model which I wanted to use. At the end of the day, within a matter of minutes, it is going to generate all my code. It is going to give me the statistical summary. It is going to give me a whole set of graphs. And there, everything is ready. So this is the power of prompt engineering. This is the power of GenAI, even, in your day-to-day lives. So we look at some industry use cases, for GenAI. So we've talked a lot about GenAI. So the biggest use case today is personalization. So as you all of you must be using Amazon, right? So on Amazon, as you see, it will often show products, which are of interest to you. Or if you go to any of these apparel sites, like suppose you go to Myntra and you watch Myntra, the landing page of Myntra for you and the landing page of Myntra for me will be very different because it's all personalized based on our choices. Now, generative AI is also interacting with us to figure all this out. All of these apps have got a chatbot, and through the chatbot you can talk. Okay, you can personalize things based on what inputs a person is giving you, what you are able to understand the person, and so which is why you are able to increase your sales in that matter. So personalization is a very, very big use case in the GenAI space. This is applicable across industry verticals, so not limited to only one particular domain alone. Similarly, code generation. We saw a small snippet of code generation right now, right? So Microsoft has come up with Copilot, which is very excellent at code generation. So, so what kind of skill set do you need now? You need to be able to write a good prompt. So if in your mind it is not clear what you want your code to do, then you will not be able to write a good prompt. And if you can't write a good prompt, you will not be able to get a good code as output. So it matters less about you being able to write the code. It matters more about how well you are able to generate the code. But logic remains the same. So ultimately, the human in the loop is required. Your generative AI may be able to help you to solve and debug that code to a large extent. But the human in the loop can still not be disconnected, because there will be moments when you need to step in and you need to make sure that whatever is happening as per the expectation. So this is where generative AI is largely coming into the picture, has already come in and is doing a lot of the industry-based code generation today. Chatbot. Everybody knows this, needs no explanation. The most basic use cases, one of the most pervasive use cases of GenAI. Anywhere and everywhere you go, you will be having a chatbot today, which is powered by some large language model in the background, and you are 90% of the time talking to that human-like robot behind that chatbot and getting all the relevant answers, because it is able to understand your natural language query. It is able to process it internally and generate a natural language query response. So today chatbots are no longer limited to, okay, hi, good morning. What do you want to do? Do you want to, whatever, rate a product? Do you want to give feedback about some product? Do you want to purchase a new product, or do you want to return a product? Then you select, okay, return a product. Then next set will come up. Which of these products do you, which order are you referring to? So it will show you the last 2-3 order numbers. You select the order number. Which product from this order do you want to return? Then you can tick. This chatbot does exist, but these chatbots are fast going out. Nowadays, the chatbot just has a conversation with you. What can I do for you today? And then you talk to it like you're talking to a human. That, I want to return this product. I'm not happy with it. Can you tell me what is the procedure for a refund? You can give this big query. The chatbot will understand the whole thing, and like a human, it will respond. It will not expect you to choose between options 1, 2, 3, and there is a possibility that, you are looking for a fourth option which doesn't exist. So today that is being taken care of because chatbots are talking to you like humans, and all these are powered by large language models. Then there is content creation. This is what, basic generative AI is known for. It just creates, it just generates content. So basically, The human in the loop is still required because we need to validate that content. A lot of our roles nowadays are shifting towards managing and shifting towards validating the AI content, which is a big issue. Like I talked about hallucination some time back, right? So we need to be very careful that whatever content is generated is authentic, is factual, and is something that we can actually use for whatever task it is being used for. Product development, designing, think about designs. I mean, designs which were actually painstakingly being done by humans. Today, generative AI is able to accelerate the entire process of product development because GenAI is able to step in at multiple stages. It will augment your work today. So whatever you're doing, you can do it faster because you have a GenAI assistant with you. So GenAI may not be able to take over the entire product development cycle as of today. You definitely need human in the loop. You need some intervention to validate, to verify the output of GenAI. But we can definitely say that it has expedited the process of product development as well. So these are a handful of industry use cases. The skill sets required for that are generic, which we talked about earlier. So some of the skills I will just round up once again. We talked about deep learning. It's a good idea to have, some understanding of deep learning models. What are these large language models? What are deep learning models? And familiarize yourself with them. Visit the Hugging Face repository, download those models, run them on your machine, try them out, see what is the meaning of token rate, understand what is the meaning of token rate, understand what is the meaning of the content which is being generated. So there are multiple aspects of different models which are available. So always familiarize yourself with this. It's a good idea to have some background in NLP. You may not need NLP directly as a field, but to understand what is a text embedding, how does generative AI store all this information in the background, how is this information, what are the new techniques available, and so on and so forth. So a good base of NLP will help you with even your interviews. Additionally, you need data science. As I said, this is one profession which is applicable across multiple fields. So understanding data, cleaning data, trying to do an EDA, that is an exploratory data analysis on any raw data that is given to you, getting the data ready for a model, understanding what kind of data is it? Is it batch data? Is it streaming data? Is it online data, and so on. So all these aspects should be known about, and they are covered by data science. Python. Now, Python invariably has become the language for all kinds of AI tasks. So which may not have been the case. I mean, we have had C and C++ and then Java. A lot of our systems are written in Java today, but going ahead, it's a good idea to understand Python, to be able to code in Python. Even though code may be generated, I would still encourage you to understand and to get a good hands-on feel of Python. So, and finally, of course, at the center of it all is prompt engineering. So if you're not able to write a good prompt, then your generative AI is only going to come out with garbage. So these are some of the skills. These are generic skills, but you can find courses in this area. You can look at these multiple courses which Rahul has also talked about. They will be covering many of these aspects. These will all help you to actually be Gen AI ready.
I think it's an exhilarating roller coaster ride, what we have seen right now. Thank you, Shruti, for that. Bhavani Mohanty is asking, I am a 4+ years experienced Java developer. Now I want to shift my career to AI. And then what will be the best career path and ways to shift?
Yeah, so basically, see, you are already a developer, you are a Java developer, which is very good. So you have your object-oriented fundamentals very clear, and which means you have a good sense of, how to write good modular code. Now, as we know, Python is no longer a modular language. I mean, you can declare any variables anywhere, you can assign anything, you don't have to worry about data types. So what I can tell you is you are coming from a far more structured programming environment and you're stepping into something that is easier. So I would say get some hands-on in Python, understand these there are so many projects which are already available on GitHub. So pick some of these projects on GitHub which are using these GenAI models and upskill yourself. There are also these courses which TCS Ion is offering. I saw that these are really wonderful courses. So pick something from those courses. And career path, yes, I mean, see, going ahead in generative AI, nobody is actually aware of, what would be a well-defined career path because everybody is new to it. But since you are already in the field, I can tell you that just continuing to stay upskilled will help you. For that, you make a shift towards Python. You look at courses, which are relevant and try to do one or two of these courses which are available to you in the market. In the meanwhile, you start building your own projects. Look at some of these projects in GenAI on GitHub. Start building your own projects. And I think that's all you need because an interviewer will ultimately only be looking for your knowledge. And given that you come from a very strong structured programming environment, this transition should definitely be easier. You're coming to something easier from something that has been tougher.
Right. So Bhavani Shankar has got the answer. Okay. So most of the people were asking about that also. Ki I am from non-IT background and we don't have that confidence to enter into the AI field. You have already explained that part, but in case if you want to add in 3 or 4 lines for them.
Yeah, so as I said, right, don't limit yourself by your degree. So, and there are so many courses available today. We have to just break that traditional mindset that we have, wherein we say that, I'm from a particular background or I may not be able to do this. There is nothing like it. Just open a course, go through that course, attend the lectures, do the assignments, and there you are no longer from a non-IT background. You already have one certification under your belt even before you know it. So generative AI is for something that everybody can understand. So you can just I would say, if you want to get started with the basics of programming, then start looking at Python. If you want to understand the basics of generative AI, take up some course, any online course, any courses which are available in the market and do it. And with that, you just keep building step by step. So don't wait for a day, where you can say that, oh, I'm from a non-IT background. Today, I'm going to transition. Transition is not going to happen today. Believe me, those of us who are already in the IT background are also having a hard time keeping up because there is something new that is coming out every day, every few hours. So even in research, wherein previously we would look at research papers which were published, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and we would call them recent research papers. Today, when we do research, we look at papers published yesterday. We look at blogs written in the morning while we are doing research in the evening. And so that is the pace at which generative AI is evolving. So it is not just you, we are also studying. In IT, you have to keep studying to keep pace with the way the world is moving. So yeah, stop thinking, I would say, and just start doing it.
I think running short of time. So I would like to ask you the last question. So how these courses will help students to start their journey or in their overall path? What is your guidance to them?
Yeah, so I would say definitely taking up a course is something that is very fundamental. It helps you to clear your concepts because there is a lot of knowledge that, we will be reading from blogs, we will be watching in videos. But when you need to have the fundamentals correct, you need to have conceptual clearance. It's always good to go through a course. A course will help you to build that rigor along with the confidence that you need when you are approaching for a career in this direction. So yes, I would highly advise you that, do take up courses, do them seriously, okay? Because at the end of the day, the fundamentals that are covered in a course, you're never going to get an opportunity later on in life to those fundamentals because you get so busy on the job, you get with so many responsibilities coming in. So while you're studying, do fundamental courses in the domain in which you want to make your career, and that will go a long way. That will go a long way for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shruti, for that. Today's webinar gave you a clear direction, not just about the technologies, but also about how you can be part of this journey. Whether your interest lies in AI, cloud platforms, cybersecurity, now is the right time to begin, as our speaker already mentioned, how these courses will help you. And I mentioned we have back-to-back webinars as well. You can join these webinars, or you can write to us if you have any issue, any problem in registering for the course, in registering for the webinars. As shared earlier, all 5 programs in collaboration with IIT Guwahati, Bhubaneswar, IIT Ropar, IIT KGP, and IIT Hyderabad are now open for enrollments. If you are ready to build future-ready skills, these are great places to start. And a big thank you to our speaker for today for her valuable insights, and all of you for your enthusiastic participation and great questions. So we need to wrap up. Thanks a lot, Shruti, for coming on the podium.
Thank you very much. Yeah.